All right, guys. So yeah, I'm really sorry about what happened. I had a mix-up in the configuration. So yeah, that was why we had to start a different stream with a new configuration. And unfortunately, we lost some participants, but we've shared the link to the others on Discord, so you can join. I hope you can hear me. I hope you can hear me very well, because I'm about to share my screen. And yeah, so just to make sure you can hear me, I want to go ahead and drop a message on the chat. Once I see some messages in there, I would know that I'm not speaking to myself, and I would kick off with the session. All right, thank you. All right, so I can see from Simeon and Precious, you can hear me. Okay, so I'll kick off right away. Thank you very much, Peace. Okay, so basically in this session today, we'll be talking about Google Sheets. We've had a previous session, a previous live stream, where we also discussed Google Sheets. We're going to go over what we've discussed in the past, and we'll work on more practical examples, right? So this is basically a live stream because the idea is to ensure that for the next 2 days or for the next 2 to 3 days, if you also join the last stream, you will be able to understand how to use Google Sheets very well. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, share my presentation, so you can see I have just a little presentation, talking about the workflow and the plan for this session. All right, so on my screen here, you see we have a very short, short and precise presentation. What this is going to do for us is give us a base guideline on how to approach this this live workshop step by step. So basically, if you are experienced using Microsoft Excel or any other spreadsheet tool like Libra Sheets, if you have any experience using Linux machines, you would at the end of the session you would discover that they are quite similar, and they perform very similar functionalities. The amazing thing about Google Sheets is the fact that you can use this directly from a web browser, which means you don't have to install any tool. You don't have to install anything whatsoever. Basically, you have the tool accessible on your browser, and you have your files saved directly on your Google Drive account. So the moment you have a Gmail account, you definitely have access to all the Google offerings as regards Office and text editing, presentation, and the Google Sheet application as well. Basically, if you don't have a Gmail account, you would have to create one, right? And once you have a Gmail account created, what I want to do is to show you, the environment, right? And that is the next thing we're going to be looking at right now. So you are simply going to access Google Sheets. All you have to do is just say Google Sheets. Okay, so let's say Google Sheets. And this is going to take you down to the About page, of course. So you have to click on Go to Sheets, right? So all you have to do is click on Go to Sheets, and this will take you to your Google Sheet environments, right? So right here, you see I have a bunch of Google Sheet files. So if you switch accounts, it's going to show you the Google Sheet files that are attached to that specific Google account, right? A very short form of creating a new Google Sheet account is just by typing sheets.new, right? So sheet.new, and I hope you can see this clearly. I'm going to zoom in, right? Right here. So sheets.new is simply going to create a new Google Sheet file for you. So if I hit the enter key, this is going to create a new file, right? A new spreadsheet file. By default, you see this is an untitled spreadsheet, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do, according to our presentation, this is going to be, a quick walkthrough on what the environment looks like. And just in case you're still asking yourself, what can I use, or what should I use the spreadsheet application or the spreadsheet tool for? Basically, if you work in an engineering department, or you work, and I'm referring to those of us in IT, right? If you work in product management, or you work in maybe like basically almost any field, even as a designer, you can actually use this to take down records, right? You can use this to take down records, and I have an example, and I'll be showing you how I created or imported this set of data, just in case you want to do something similar, right? So you can actually import data. You can create data from scratch, and you can basically perform computations, right? You can share this with others, and that is another nice feature here. You can share this file with other people, and they can collaborate with you on this file. They can drop comments, and you can also respond to those comments. Okay, so let us just start from the beginning here. So basically, now that we've created a new sheets using sheet.new, the next thing you might want to do is to save that particular file, right? And you want to save this file for one main reason, right? You want to save this file because you want to be able to, identify this file when you open up your Google Drive account, so or your Google Drive environment. So basically, I'm going to call this file Google Sheets training. So let's say Google Sheets training. All right, so now I have this file saved, and as you can see, there was a prompt saying it was saved to Drive. What you can also do is to move this file to the right location. If you don't want it on this location, you can choose to create a new folder, right? And make sure you have this file in the right folder, so that when you want to probably search for this file, it will be easy for you to locate the file, based on the location that you've saved it into. Of course, you have to be connected to the internet. This file is going to be saved automatically. All the changes would actually be saved automatically. And if you're not connected to the internet, then it might not be saved. So it's safe to ensure that you are actually connected. And even while you're working, let's assume in the middle of work, your internet goes off. You can always reconnect, and the file would sync up to the Google Drive or the Google Sheet server, and it will be saved automatically. So now that is basically how to rename your file. The option you have here, which says star, is basically used to mark this file as favorites, so that when you open up your Google Drive or your Google Sheet environment here to show you all the sheets you have, you would see the file that you're currently accessing, which is this file, right? And it will show you the previous timestamp. This is going to describe the last time this file was opened, right? So you see we have Google Sheet training right here. I'm going to click on that file again, and this is going to bring us back to the environment. Okay, and yeah, you can see this was last edited 2 minutes ago. Now I'm going to cover some of the basic, some of the basic things we have here, like understanding what we describe as the cells, the columns and the rows. Before I show you those features, I think I would love to also make you understand that, yeah, you can basically share these files. We're going to explore this very soon. You can actually drop comments and take a look at the comment history on these files. We'll also explore that shortly. Before I proceed, I would love to share this file with you. Just, you can actually follow the link. So I'm going to share this file or this presentation. I'm simply going to copy the view link, so all the collaborators can view this file. And I'm going to drop this link. Give me a minute. I'm going to share this link with you. And yeah, someone is asking if this can be shared later. Definitely. I mean, it can be watched later, definitely. All right. So let me have this on a separate screen as well, so that we don't cause distractions. Okay, so I think the link has been shared with you on the chat, so you can simply click on that link to open that file or that presentation in a different environment. Okay. All right, so let's go back to what we were talking about. Okay, so currently on this file, you see we have a bunch of menus, right? You see we have the file menu, and basically we have several functions you can perform from each menu, right? The file menu is basically the menu that contains a bunch of actions, such as creating a new spreadsheet file, or creating a new spreadsheet file from the template gallery. On the template gallery, you have several samples, right? Predefined or pre-designed samples like the to-do list, the annual budget, the monthly budget. There are a bunch of samples you could use for your operations if you want to create like an expense report or like a purchase order or even an invoice, right? I've used this tool several times for setting up invoices and also setting up simple task reports, right? So you can use this tool for most of these operations, and there are a bunch of templates that can help you. But of course, you can always create a new file and start from scratch if that is your preference. You can also open an existing file. So simply on the Mac, we have a bunch of shortcuts here. This is currently Command O to open. If you are a Windows user, of course, this should be Control O. So if I click on open, it's going to show me some previous files on my drive, right? And this is showing me the recent files. You can click on this tab to see all the spreadsheet files you have on the drive. And yeah, these are the set of files that are shared with you, right? And yeah, so there are a bunch of files. You could even open a file by uploading it. Maybe you have that file locally on your desktop or on your laptop. You can actually upload that file into the spreadsheet package, and it will load it up on your browser. Okay, so the next item here is to import or make a copy. So import basically means you're importing a file. It can be a CSV file, it can be an Excel file. It automatically converts that file and have that file displayed on your spreadsheet file, right? So make a copy is basically going to duplicate. So this is similar to saying duplicate. So you're duplicating this current file. Maybe for some reasons you want to do that. You can actually do that using this function. You can share this with others, or you can publish this to the web. When you publish this, it means you're going to be given a URL, and you can share that URL with the collaborators or the people you want to share that URL with, and you can get to work with them on this file. For the email, you can also share this file via email, right? You can download this file in multiple extensions. If you want to open up this file on Microsoft Excel that you have installed locally, or you want to open this file in an open document format, which I believe most of the Linux-based tools, spreadsheet tools use. And we also have the PDF option if you want to download this file as a PDF file or as a web page, or as a CSV, which is one of the most used options for folks in the tech space. All right, so you can choose to rename this file as well. You can also double click on this here to do that, right? And you can move this file to different locations. So I'm not going to go through every single option because that might waste our time, but I'm simply going to point on some of them. For example, you can use the print option to print, right? And you have a shortcut for that, which is Control P or Command P. Okay, now on the edit menu, basically you have options to like undo or redo your current activity. So let's assume you put in maybe you type in some items here, like for example, I can say Mav, right? And I can then use Control Z or Control Z, or you can also use Control Y to undo and then redo those activities or those operations that you've performed. All right, so that is basically the function of these two items right here. So you also have the copy, paste, cut, and I'm sure most of us know the functionalities of these items. Basically, you can cut a specific item and paste it somewhere else, or you can copy and paste, more like duplicate that specific item. And you can also use the paste special, which is something that I'm going to explain towards the end of this session. So paste special, basically, I would go into some detail, especially when I'm showing you how to paste transposed. Okay, So yeah, you also have the view menu, which is basically going to is basically containing some options to show specific parts of these items, like specific part of the display. And what I mean is that we can choose to turn off grid lines. You can see that the grid lines are gone, right? So yeah, you do that from the view menu. You also have the item to freeze and group. I will show you a shorter form of doing that. You can also display on full screen. And on the insert menu, you can insert new cells, rows, columns, sheets, charts. And this is what we're going to be doing during the end of the 3-day training. We're going to be working on a bunch of charts, pivot tables, and I'm sure you will definitely enjoy that session. For format, you can basically change the theme. This is a new feature, as you can see. But in Excel, you have in Excel or Google Sheets, right? You have a bunch of data formats, right, or data types. And you can choose to actually format your numbers. If you have a bunch of numbers, you can choose to format those numbers and make them display as regular numbers, or numbers in its percentile, or maybe display those numbers as scientific numbers, right? Or even accounting or financial or even currency type of number. So you see, we have multiple types. We have the date format, we have time, we have, yeah, so I think those are some of the options we have. You can also choose to, format the text by making it bold, underline, strike through. You have some of those items here. We'll get to use them as well. Alignments also, if you want to have items aligned to the left, right, or center, you can use the option from here. And also for text wrapping, rotation, text rotation. So I'm sure you've seen some of these items. Maybe you've seen something like this. So we have, let's assume we'll call this, let's say first quarter. Okay. So for some reasons, you basically want this to be, to show this way. This is basically what you can do with the rotation feature right there. And yeah, I think this is fine for now. If we have more complex stuff, so we'll definitely get to that. Because you don't necessarily have to remember every single functionality in here. Yeah, so depending on the situation or the task you have at hand, there's always a way to resolve that, except if what you're trying to accomplish is not possible in the tool. Most of the time, of course, you always figure out how to resolve that. So what we're going to do right now is to basically talk about the sheets that you see we have here. You can actually create multiple sheets, and the reason why you might want to create multiple sheets is because in my own opinion, I definitely advise people to have multiple sheets. You have the sheets for your raw data, right? And you also have the sheets for your presentation, and then you have another sheet for your calculations. Now, I would do that if I am probably working on a project, right? Maybe a project, probably a large project. If I am working on a very simple computation, I don't necessarily need to do that. Yeah, but let's assume you have a very large data set. You might have to, or you might want to, create a sheet. I'm basically double clicking on this sheet to rename this sheet right now. I'm going to call this my raw data, right? It can be raw or maybe raw data if you want to. And I'm going to create a new sheet by clicking on the plus icon here, which is going to add a new sheet right here. I'm going to call this presentation. And finally, I'm going to create another sheet this time around. I'll call it calculation. Okay. All right. So how do we know that we have multiple sheets? So I'm going to call this sheet 1. I think that was a spelling error. Okay. Sheet 1. And I'm going to I'm going to click on the other sheet. I'm going to title this sheet 2. I'm going to put another item here called this sheet 3. All right, so looking at this, you see when I click on the first sheet, we have sheet 1 right there. The second sheet, which is the presentation sheet, we have sheet 2. And the calculation sheet, we have sheet 3. Okay, when you also click on this option, you can see individual sheets, displayed like this. What you can also do most times is, let's assume there's you want a specific way to identify these sheets. You can always choose to use color options. So basically, all I had to do was right click on the sheet, and you see I clicked on change color. Of course, you can duplicate this, you can rename this, you can even lock this if you want to, but yeah, changing the color is basically going to allow me identify each sheet. So I'm actually changing this color as well. Let's use red. And for the calculation, I'm going to say change color, and let's use purple. I think that is purple. So when I click on this item to see all sheets, you see we have those colors right here, green, red, and yeah. So I'm thinking this is pink. Okay, so let's go back to the first sheet, which is the sheet 1. Another thing you notice right now is we have a bunch of cells, right? These are referred to as cells. When you click on a specific item that is referred to as cell, your worksheet is basically made up of columns and rows, right? So for example, you see we have column A, we have column B, we have column C, just like that. We have multiple columns, and also we have multiple rows. How do you identify a specific cell? So, a cell is what I describe, as an intersection between a row and a column, right? So when you have a row and a column meet at one, a specific point, it gives you a cell, right? So these are your cells, like this. I'm selecting multiple cells right now. And, when you then, put in a specific item, for example, we have this item, sheet 1. I think I would rather use a name. So I'm going to use my name, Marvelous. And you see we have this particular cell described as A1. This is referred to as the label of this cell, right? So if I copy this to a different random cell, you see this cell is referred to as D1, and that is the label or the name of this cell. And how do you sorry, that was D7. Yeah, so how do you really identify or see that this is D7? Basically, you have the column, right? Which is D, and then you have the row number, which is 7. So in a more professional setting, we call this column D, row 7, right? Column D, row 7. If I have this data in probably, let's say the E3, right? So you call this column E, row 3. Okay, so that is basically how you identify the positions, right, of the current cell that we're describing. So the next thing I would want you to also understand is if you have a bunch of text, right? If you have a bunch of text, there are ways to actually, rearrange these cells. This is actually taking us to the next item we have on the presentation material that I shared with you, which is column, rows, and cells. Okay, so I'm going through this, as fast as I can because we already delayed for about 20-25 minutes due to the technical issue we had towards the start of the live stream. Yeah, so let's just move on to that. Column, rows, and cell. So of course, I have described the cell, I have described the column and the rows. We're going to work with a simple assumption right now. So I have this file that I imported in here. I'm definitely going to show you how to import new files. But basically, I'm going to point to a random field. And you see this is giving us C13, which is column C, row 13. And you can also see that here, right? And the value shows up here. So when you click on a specific item, the value shows up here, and the label or the location, of that particular cell is shown here as a description, right? Okay. Now I'll move on to the next item, which is sizing rows and columns. And sizing rows and columns simply means that we can choose to adjust the size of the rows and the columns, right? So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm basically adjusting the size of the column, which is column B, right? And I can also do that. I can adjust the size of the rows. So I decided to show you this specific example using this file because we have a bunch of items here, and I think it is more practical or realistic to show you what would happen when you change the size of these rows and columns. So basically, it's not a big deal. It's not going to affect whatever computation or formula you've used. We'll get to talk about formulas in the future. Probably before the end of the session, we'll just show you a little bit of the basics around formulas. So the reason for changing the sizes most times is you might have a field, or a cell, and the value within that cell might, go beyond the size. And yeah, for some reasons, you just want to expand this. It's not necessary, it's not compulsory, except you just want to do that for, just, having a way to see the complete set of data. The fact that you can't see the data does not mean it's not there. It's actually there, right? And if you're using this for some computation, nothing would go wrong. But if you choose to expand this, then you can just go ahead and expand that column, right? Which is what I have done. There are other ways to do things like text wrapping. We'll get to that shortly. I'll show you how to wrap the text so that the moment you get to that specific the end of the cell, basically, it will automatically show the remaining content at the bottom instead of becoming invisible, right? So let's leave this for now. And now I believe we understand how to size the rows and column. The next thing we'll do is to jump into data entry types and serial auto-generating rows and columns. So let's do that. So that sounds a bit bulky, but it's quite straightforward. So data entry, I'm just trying to show you how to enter this data. So let's assume we're trying to create a very simple data such as, let's say name, department, let's say points. Okay, let's call this score. Okay, so we have, let's say this is the employee name, the employee department, employee score. Okay, I think this should be maybe date employed, right? Date employed, and maybe salary. Okay, so basically you should know the kind of data you're trying to accept. I mean, that is one of the first steps. You don't just create an Excel file without knowing what to do with that file, I believe. So yeah. So one thing I'm going to do right now is to show you, you can basically, move these items if you want to. I've shown you how to copy and paste, but I'm going to also show you again. Now I'm basically cutting this, and I'm using a shortcut Control X, right, for Windows, and for the Mac Command X. So I just use Command X to cut this item, and I'm going to paste this item in the next line, which is I'm going to use Command V, right? So I use Command V, right? Command X or Control X to cut, and Command V or Control V to paste, right? So I was able to move this entire line to the next line, and right now this line is A2, B2, C2, and D2, right? Okay, that was just an example. Let's move it back with Command X again and Command V. So now we have this item. We're going to make every single item on this row to be bold by simply using Command B, or I can simply click on this right here. This is going to make it bold. You can also change the font size if you wish to, right? So see, I'm able to change the font size for the items on this row. Okay, so then next I'm going to expand this a little bit so that we can, have a better view. All right, so I think this is fine. The next thing I'm going to do is to put in some names, right? And I'm just going to put in 3 names. So we have John Doe, John Mary, and let's say Marv. Okay, so now we have 3 names, and for the departments, I'm going to say marketing, sales, and IT. Date employed, we're simply going to put a random date. I'm going to say 12. Okay, so one thing you might want to do is to go to your let's see, is to basically go to the format and click on number. Then you can also select this option, which is for dates, right? So now that I've clicked on that, if I go ahead and say, let's say 1/1/2020, I think I might have to. Okay, so now I clicked on the format and I selected dates. I entered the dates. So when I double click on this, you see it gives me the option to change the date, right? That is because I've changed this format to date entry. If this was not the date entry format, this will just show as a random text, right? So for example, this is a random text, but now this is a date type. If I go ahead and select this item, I paste with Command C and Command V. This is just a way to and change this if I want to, right? I'm also going to show you something else here. So we're going to enter a normal value. Probably, let's say the salary of this young man here is marketing department. So let's say $2,000, and our salary currently is in dollars. So let's just put that in here as a reference. So for the John Mary, we say, okay, sales department, let's say $5,000. And the IT, I'm going to give an assumption of $4,000. Okay. What you might want to do is, this currently is a random text, as you can see. I just double click, and of course, it's showing us as a number. That is why it moves down to the extreme edge, right? So it is aligned to the right as compared to the text, which is aligned to the left. But what I want to show you is how you can simply change the format, through the number option here, and you can change this to a currency. So you see this is automatically changed to a currency type. And when you double click, all you need to enter is the number, and it will automatically format this, to look more like a currency value, right? So I think this is a very nice way to organize your file. One thing you might want to do, you see that when I scroll, we are unable to keep the the menu. I'm simply going to call this the header here, right? So name, department, and date employed, and the salary. This is meant to be, kind of like an header. And what you might want to do is simply click on this, this blue stuff you see right here on the edge. So I'm going to show you 1 minute, please. All right. So if I click on this, I can simply drag this down to this point. And this would show that that item has to be fixed, right? So I just made the items on A1 to D1. I just made the items there fixed so that you can actually scroll and that item would remain in that position. Okay. All right, so I believe you understand that. You can also do the same if you want a specific item to remain constant. You don't want, a particular item to scroll. You can do that. I'm not going to do that here, but you see that when I scroll in, to the side, that item is fixed, right? That item is fixed. I'm not going to show you a very complex example in this session, but before the end of this the training, I believe you would understand some of the use cases where this functionality would come in handy. All right. If you have any questions, please go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. I'm currently looking at the chat, and yeah, I would answer your questions live, on the call if you have any question here. Okay, so let's move on to the next item on the slide. Text formatting, and of course I've shown you some simple formatting options. But let's say you want to have, something like the serial auto-generating rows, which I'm here to show you because I wanted to show you in a different, in a different example. Okay, so I'm going to take all the items that we have on the salary option here for now. I'm going to right-click on this, and of course I can delete the column. I can even hide the column if I don't want people to see it. I can hide that column. For now, I'm simply going to delete that column, right? So you see, we have, it's currently empty. What I'm going to do here is to give you an option. I'm going to put this as, let's assume that all the workers earn, equal salary, which is not practical in the real world. But let's just assume that we have, maybe we have $1,000. So now we have $1,000. This is not formatted as a currency yet, but now I want to show you. You see this this item you see right here, this little blue dot you see right here. You can basically use this to extend the values, right? So you see we have we just auto-generated this, items by dragging this, So this automatically generated the same value for the rest of the cells. One other thing is, when it comes to auto-generating items, let's assume you have one and you choose to auto-generate. It gives you that serial. Okay, there was a mistake right there. I needed to add 2 as well. Then I can show you how I would select both items and then generate. So you see we have that serial auto-generated set of numbers from 1 to 6, right? And of course, you can have this for a bunch of, a bunch of items or a bunch of cells. If you are also working with maybe the days of the week, like Monday and Tuesday, let's see if I spelled that correctly, we can then have, we can then have the rest generated for us, right? And let's zoom in once again. So if we repeat that, it's going to just, go back and repeat the same loop, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just like that. Okay, so now that is a simple way to auto-generate some of the values you should have on that particular cell. That will also work for formulas. So by the time we start using the formula, I will show you how to generate the next values based on the initial formula that you set, right? And basically speaking about text formatting, of course, you can choose to change, the colors of the field, of that specific field if you want to. You can select multiple items and change the color of that field. This is basically, formatting the text, right? You can make it bold, you can make it italicized, you can, add the strike through feature here. We have a bunch of shortcuts, and at the end of the training, I would also be giving you a link to this Excel cheat sheet, right? And I got this from customguide.com. I would share this with you, and I'm sure you would enjoy working with this set of shortcuts. Okay, so back to our file. We've seen how to make some items bold. Of course, you can change the size of the field, of the cell. You can change those sizes if you want to. You can change the font type, right? So basically, you have the font type, you have the font size. You have some of these options for making things bold, italicized, strike through, and they're also changing the color. And you can also fill in a color, right? So this is basically cell formatting right now. We are actually formatting this cell, which is the next thing we have on that presentation material, where we are formatting this cell. And you can also choose to format, a whole row, or probably the whole column if you want to, right? So you can fill that. That is a bad choice of color. We can choose something like this. So let's assume you're trying to mark a specific column, to show the level of importance. Of course, they are very, neat, or should I say, they are very, professional ways to use colors in organizing the file, right? So yeah, so if you basically want to do that, we'll get to the stage where we will definitely use colors to show the importance of some areas in that document. And someone is asking, please repeat how to make the headers fixed. Okay, so to make the headers fixed, all I did, this is what you have by default, right? So it's not fixed. What I did was, using this item, you see, take a look at the A2. I'm going to zoom in once again, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. So you see we have this item that you can actually move. This item you can also move right here. So if I click on this and I, put it right here, the item is going to be fixed. The item, the name, department, the item on the A1, from the A1 row is going to be fixed, right? So the same option applies when you, do that probably for the, column as well. So you see, if I scroll down to the left or right, right here, this particular item does not scroll alongside with this other item. So I'm going to take that off, and I believe you understand this better now. Let's take it off for now. Okay, so I think the next question I also saw here is for Excel, if you want the header to be static while scrolling, is it the same way for Excel? Yeah, so I won't be able to show you that on this call, but I believe it's similar. If you don't find it, if you don't see how to do it that way, before the end of the 3 days training, we're definitely going to work with Excel online as well, right? So you can also use Excel on the browser. And yeah, I would just ensure you're part of that training, and drop this message in there. I would also show you how to do that. Okay. All right. So let's move on. Looking at the next thing we have here, I've shown you some stuff about text formatting, and these are basic formatting options. If you also choose to align these items, of course, you can change the alignments, right? So these are basic, alignment options. You align to the left, align to the right, or align to the center. I choose to leave it, with the default most times. Then this item is basically used to align, that. So let's assume, let me show you something. So you see what I have here. I'm going to assume that we have, this item. This is what you have by default. I can choose to align this item, to the center, to the top, or to the bottom, right? So these are some of the features you have here. I think you rarely do things, you rarely use some of them, but it's a good idea to understand how they work, right? So you also have the features for wrapping those texts or for clipping those texts. I think what you might want to know is the wrapping feature. So let's assume I have a bunch of text, right? I'm going to bring in a very long text, and I'm going to paste in this text in here. So you see what happened, right? And that is because this item is center aligned. If it's left aligned, this is what happens. The question that most beginners ask is, does this mean that this text, runs through the rest of the cell? Basically, no, because if I, put in some values here, you see that it's now hidden, right? So the reason why you have it this way is just because you don't have items on these other cells for now. But what you can also do is to use the wrap feature, to wrap this item, to ensure that it is bounded within that specific cell, right? So this is something you might want to do if you just want to, ensure you can see every item once you open this file without having to expand that particular cell. All you have to do is wrap that item, right? And also you can rotate this text. I think I've shown you this already. You rotate this text and this is what you have. Okay, so let us go ahead and take this off for now. We have a bunch of options for formatting, right? And you can also choose to format the cell even before putting in your data, right? You can choose to format the cell, which is what I've shown you already. I think that should be fine for this session. We would have to work on advanced formatting and even conditional formattings when we start working with formulas. Okay, so the next one now is going to be about merging cells. And in what occasion would you want to merge the cells? All right, so let's try something. So let's assume I want to add a cell, right above this specific heading, and the cell here is going to describe. I'm going to call this employee. Let's call this top universe employee record sheet. Okay. Now, you remember one thing for sure, that this particular item is just located in one cell, right? Which means if I duplicate this, you can't see the whole item, on that first cell. So let's go ahead and remove the other cell. Now, what you might want to do is to make this, one cell, right? You want to merge A1, B1, and C1. You want to merge these cells together to become one cell. So all you would do in that case is, highlight the three cells, just select and drag, right? Or you can just select the first one, hold your shift key and select this item to automatically select the three cells. And yeah, the next thing you would want to do is to say merge all, right? By clicking on this and selecting merge all. If you click on the drop down basically, or you can just click on this and that would happen automatically, right? And now we've been able to merge the cell. Our document has been saved, and you might now choose to align this to the center, and this is what you have, right? And let's go ahead and make this static. So take a look at this. This is what we have right now. I'm going to duplicate this item to make this field even more. Yeah, so we have more items. So you see when I scroll, the heading and yeah, I would call this probably the title, and the heading is now fixed. Okay, let's go ahead and drop this font size a bit. So let's use 11 here, and we can also change the color to make it obvious that it's the heading. All right, so this is what we have, just a very simple format. By default, some people also think that if you print this document, that this document might come out with the grids. Basically, it would not come out with the grids. The grids are just there for your own perusal while working on this file, but you can definitely set some sort of tables, using the border item here, if you want this item to print out with the lines, right? So now we have some border items around this, and this is basically how you add those border items. Okay, let's take it off, and let's talk about sorting the data. Now we have a bunch of data. We don't have like a yes or no option, or kind of like a salary option. What I'm going to do is to say we have a new heading, and this heading is simply going to be let us take the redundant data off first. So we have 3 items, and we're going to have a salary range. So let's say 500, let's say 1,000, let's say 2,000, and I'm going to change this to salary once again. Also ensure that I have the color, right? So instead of trying to put this color manually, I'm simply going to copy this item. But what I'm going to do is when I copy and I'm about to paste, I'm simply going to click on paste special, and then I'm going to click on the format only. Now, the format only is basically going to paste the formatting, but it's not going to paste the value. And I think that is the importance of understanding what do you get from paste special. So you can actually paste the value only without the formatting. It will change the salary to date employed. You can paste the format only, which will give you the properties, but not the value. You can also paste formula only if you have a formula within that stuff you've copied. And I'm going to simply use the format only. So this gives me the format. It changes the font size and also the background color, right? Which is the cell color. All right. So now that I have this, I want us to perform, sorting, operation on this set of data. In order to do that, I'm simply going to select this item, and I selected the salary because I want to sort based on salary for now, right? So what I do is I click on the salary and I drag just like this, okay? The next thing I will do is to click on this, let's see, sorting. There's a shortcut for that right here. I think this is it. Filter, nope, that is not sorting. Let's go to data, and we have sort sheet. Okay, so this is the icon to sort this sheet in ascending or descending order, but I would love to also check, maybe I skipped it right here. Aha, okay, so that is not shown here. Okay. So basically, we have to go to the data, and then you have to click on sort sheets, right? So we can sort this from A to Z, and of course, it's already sorted that way. So let's go ahead and do from D to Z. So from Z to A. I think that's what I had. Let's see. Excuse me. From Z to A. Okay. So now you see I was able to sort this in descending order, which means the item, and when I mean descending, I'm not really looking at the alphabetical order right now, but we're looking at from the highest to the lowest, or from the lowest to the highest number, because we're basically sorting with a number, right? So I'm going to use Ctrl Z to bring back the previous arrangement, and let's do it from let's sort this using the alphabet this time around from the name. So by clicking on data, sort sheet A to Z, and let's go ahead and try that from Z to A this time around. Data, sort sheet, and from Z to A. So you see, we have M comes first, J. If you have other items, it would automatically structure those items. In order to test this on a more robust set of data, we can choose to sort this by the gender, right? So if you want to sort this by the gender, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on this item, male, right? Select this item, and then move down to the end of this sheet. I have 1,000 records on this file, and this was auto-generated. These are dummy data. So now that I've selected this set of data, let's go back to the top. What I want to do is to sort, male or female. So the first list of items you see would either be male or female after sorting this item. So if you do it this way, you see we have, all right, so I don't know what agenda is, but I think, yeah, it's part of the data that I imported into this file. So I think we have oh my God. All right, so we have a bunch of different genders in here. Of course, we were able to, sort this. Let's sort this to, let's use Z to A. Wow. Okay, so I believe you understand what the example I'm trying to show you. You can also sort this by first name, by last name, or by email, right? And yeah, this is just a dummy data. I will show you how to do that shortly. So I'm going to check the comments if we have more questions. Obviously, we don't have any question for now. Let us move on to the next item there, which is working with formulas. And this is going to be a very lightweight example on how to work with formulas, right? I think before I do that, I mentioned the paste special, where you are able to actually select a bunch of items. You copy those items with Ctrl C, which is what I've done. And then when you are about to paste, you can use the paste special and transpose this, right? So this is what you have when you work with transposing. Transposing, pasting while setting the transpose option is simply going to put the the items on the row. Is going to make it a column, right? So you have name, department, date, employed, and salary sitting right here on the column, and then you have John Doe, Mary, and Mav S sitting here as a row. So you see, you have transposed the table or the structure of the document, and basically this is what it looks like. There are a bunch of use cases where you might want to do this. This is just a quick example on how to have it transposed. Just in case you are asked to do that, it's quite automatic when using Google Sheets. I'm not certain if we have this. I basically haven't used it in Excel, but I've not used Excel in a very long time. Yeah, so I think it's something you might have to check. When we get there as well, we'll try our hands on some of this. For the Excel lovers, if you prefer working with Excel, then I think we should try and see if you can do the same thing in Excel. So let's go ahead and take off some of these columns, change some of the formatting there. Okay, so using formulas, a quick one. I think it's ideal to understand that when using Excel, you can basically, when using Excel or any spreadsheet tool, you can basically perform calculations. Once you have the equal sign, so we can say 5 plus 5, right? This gives us 10, right? You can say, you see, I bring in the equal sign first, because if I don't bring in the sign, we just have text, right? Once you bring in the sign, then you have a formula. Okay, so we can also perform even more advanced, we can say 5 times 5, bracket close, plus 2. I don't know if the exponent sign would work here, but let's try that. Let's see. Aha, that doesn't work. So I think that, yeah, 5. Okay, I think something went wrong because of the equal sign, I believe. So let's see. Okay, so I think I would want to understand. Aha, so the problem with that is that this item is basically, remember we formatted this as a date item. So I'm going to change that and let's leave it as automatic, sorry. So yeah, that was the problem, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and try this again. I'm going to say bracket 5 times 5 plus 7. And now we have 32, right? So what if I say 7 raised to power 2? Okay, so that works, right? And that the idea is the moment you have the equal sign, you can actually put in your computation. So long you don't have any problem within that computation, it's expected to give you a result. But one major thing you would want to do when performing these operations is referencing. So for example, we can say we probably want to calculate for tax, right? And for the salary, let's use more reasonable set of items. So we have $5,000, $1,000, and $2,000. And what you want us to do, what we want to do right now is check for the tax, right? So what we might do is to say equals D2, I think that should be D3. So now we are referencing, right? So D3 is a way to reference this item, and we can say maybe times 10 divided by 100, and this gives us the tax, right? So you see, looking at it from here, once I hover on this, it's not giving us the value now, but giving us the formula, because the formula made up the value. So if the formula is, go ahead and try to use the serial pattern, right? If I drag this down here, it's going to automatically pick up the value, right, using the formula. So when I clicked on this, this was D3. This now is D4, and this is D5, right? So the value, the formula was auto-generated, and the computation was automatic, right? So now we have the tags for John Doe, for John Mary, and for Mav S. Okay, so you see how automated this can be. I would also love to copy this and paste special. Let's paste the format only. Okay, so you see we're able to use very simple formulas, right? Once you have the equal sign, you can perform some operations. For example, it's giving us a suggestion to perform the sum of these items, which is just have to say sum, which is the formula, right? So when you are putting a formula, you need to have the key to that formula. These are basically the functions, right? That's what we call them. So we have the sum function, the sum if, which is a sum with conditional assigned to it. So you sum that set of items if the condition is met, right? So we have tons of formulas, right? So we can check that from here. Let's see. You see we have tons of functions. All right, so you see these are the basic functions, kind of like the group. When you click on any of these items, for example, the all item here, it gives you tons of functions. How do you know the function to use? Most times that to be part of the requirement. And, if you don't have that function here, you can definitely use your formula to create the function for yourself, right? Let's assume we want to say, want to use a function for sum. So let's start by doing the total, right? So let's call this total. And we want to see the total cost of, the salaries at the end of every month, right? So let's say this is for September 2022. Okay. All right, record sheet. I think maybe this should be salary sheet. Okay, so we have total, and in here, I'm simply going to say we have the sum function, and we're going to bring in the sum from D3, to D5, right? D5, and you see we have $8,000. So let's go ahead and format this, these items to look more like currency, right? So you see we have $8,000, and the reason why this changed to currency value, even when we did not specify, is because this is currently referencing the currency field, and it has to, maintain that reference, right? So we can also, put a total of the tax, right? All we have to do is extend this, right? So you see, I extended this now, and it automatically picked up the range for our computation. So this is, this is what you can do with the spreadsheet tool, and this is amazing, right? What we've done right now is, we've seen how to work with formulas and also how to reference cells, right? So we just did cell referencing right now. And, this looks, if this looks complicated to you, you can always come back and watch this video. If this looks very basic, don't worry, we're going to get to, work with advanced items. And before it's 1:30 p.m. West African time, I'm simply going to show you how to generate a bunch of dummy data for your practice. So if you want to go ahead and practice more before the next session, which is holding tomorrow live on YouTube by 12 p.m. West African time, I think you can actually go down to a website called Mokaro. So mokaro.com. And I would share this on the chat as well. Let's see. Okay, so I think that has been shared with you on the chat. So you can simply visit mokaro.com, put in the set of data you want. So let's take off this data for now. It's quite simple. It's a free tool. It has paid features, but I don't think you need to pay for this to get some of these simple functionalities. So basically, you can generate a bunch of data with different formats, right? So I use this while teaching people how to work with Excel, or even engineering, software engineering, right? You need a bunch of data, and even as designers, you can actually generate some data and import this data into your design tool. So you can play around with this tool. I've been using this tool roughly since 2017, and I love it. Every single moment you can generate data with different different types, right? So different type of data. So let's assume we're trying to generate an employee data. So I'm going to say we have the employee name. We have the employee department. We have the employee, maybe date employed, right? Date employed. And I think finally salary and tax, okay? Yeah, so by default, I mean, you should know that by default, this would not generate the accurate values, right? But let's just go ahead and set, we want a number right here. Just give us a number, or maybe let's see if we have the salary, or we have price, or let's see, let's search for money. So we have, sample monetary values here. So we have tax, this is also money. We have date employed. Let's just search for dates, time. We have department, and let's search for Department, I don't know if we have department. We do have department. Okay. The name, I'm simply going to search for name. So let's use common names. Okay. So now for the daytime, you can set a range. You can set what you're seeing here for the blank option is basically to say if you want some items within this generated data to be blank. If you want 1% of the items, 2% of the items, or 50% of the items when it comes to the name field to be blank, you can do that. I'm going to leave everything as 0 because I don't want any item to be blank, right? And I'm going to limit this to 100 data. You can generate 1,000 data. I think if you're signed in, you can generate more than 1,000 data. And if you're on the paid plan, you can generate even data in the millions, right? So we want a CSV item because any spreadsheet file can actually import a CSV, right? You see, you can actually get an Excel item, SQL, JSON, right? And of course, any item you select, you can preview to see what it looks like. So this is what your JSON items, 100 randomly generated items would look like. For now, we're working with CSV, and of course, the CSV is, it looks like a table. In the raw format, it's separated with commas, but in the tabular form, it looks like this. So this is what we've been able to generate, and all you have to do then is click on download, download data, and this will download as a mock data file, right? So let us open up this mock data file. I'm going to put it on my desktop, and let's call this employee mock, right? So I just renamed this file to employee mock right here. And then back to the spreadsheet, which is Google Sheet. We can create a new Google Sheet file. Remember, I told you sheets.new gives you the new Google Sheet file, right? And then you can import this into that file by simply, yeah, I think it's still loading up, okay? So we're still creating that new file. Yeah, but you can also import into your previous file, so let me show you that from here. We can import that data, from the computer. So it's going to show you a dialog or a modal asking you to import the file on your drive, or yeah, I'm simply going to upload, right? So I'm going to select this item, go over to the desktop, employee mock. So when I select that, it's going to upload that specific file, and then it's asking me if I want to create a new file or I want to insert it into a new sheet right here, right? So I'm going to click on insert into a new sheet, and it's going to detect the separator automatically because I don't want to specify, the kind of separations I have on that CSV file. So just leave it as detect automatically, and it's going to convert the text to numbers and dates and formulas. Okay, so import data. So we now have a new sheet, as you can see, employee mock with the set of data that was generated, right? So what you can do right now is, reference this by simply putting your formula, for the tax. We have equals D2, multiplied by 10 divided by 100. Okay, so let's drag this down to the end, and you would have that reference, automated. So this is the tax. So if I change this value to like $10,000, it's going to give us the tax, which is $1,000, right? So you can also change the other values. You can reference some of these items. As a matter of fact, you can reference items in different sheets, and I'll teach you how to do that. I'll teach you how to do some advanced computation, working with conditions, if statements, and conditional formatting in the next class, which is tomorrow. So try as much as possible to be there. Invite your friends. The final thing on our presentation is that you can actually click on share, and you can share this document or this spreadsheet file with a bunch of friends, right? So you can say anyone with a link can access this file, or you can make this file restricted to the set of people that you invite, by simply, sorry, I had some, yeah. So you can simply, click on this and, put in the email that you want to invite, right? When you have those email up here, you can invite those people by simply clicking on the done button, and they would receive a notification via mail, and they can follow that link, they can join you on this file, and they can even drop comments, right? So they can drop comments on this file, and they can ask you stuff like, maybe I select this specific item and I add a comment to that item. I say, Leon wasn't employed this day. right? So date is wrong. Okay, so when I drop that comment, someone else can come to that comment and drop a message. Someone else can drop a message if they are on this file, telling me that okay, the date is actually correct. I think you did not check properly, right? Or you can even tag someone's name to this file, and when you put someone's name on this file, what would happen here is when you assign, when you use the @ sign and you tag someone to this specific comment, they will receive a notification telling them that they have something to resolve. And when they are done fixing that, they can resolve that comment, so that the person that initiated that comment tree would, get another notification saying that this comment has been resolved, right? So there are a bunch of things, and yeah, you can even link that up to Slack or, some external software, to serve as a notification, yeah, so that when something happens here, it triggers, that notification to the external application, right? So I think that is another amazing feature. The set of integrations makes it wonderful. Okay, so I think that should be all for this session. If you have any question, we'll just have 2 minutes. Go ahead and drop your messages on the chat, and I will take that in the next 2 minutes. Okay. All right, so I think I don't think we have new messages coming in. So I think that should be all for now. And I'll see you tomorrow, same time, 12 p.m. Try as much as possible to join that session so that you can, learn more on how to, use the spreadsheet tool, how to perform more advanced computation. Thank you very much for joining, and do have a wonderful day.